When taking a woodwind methods class, a lot of times you get to see what students see when they begin an instrument. And it can be a helpful or unhelpful thing. A lot of times what you'll see is just repetitions of the same note over and over again. B, 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 G, G. I have found it to be a very poor way to engage a student. And so for this playing assignment or exercise, what I want you to do is write a 4-measure etude piece in 4/4, common time. And I want you to try to balance repetition and variation in a melody to reinforce what you want to teach. You've learned what a D major scale looks like. And so you can understand the patterns you might see, like B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, is just adding one finger after the other. And then you go to C sharp and D. That creates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes and turns it into one thing. Just add one finger at a time. Well, now you've got 6 notes accounted for with one process. So I want you to do that for D major and write 4 bars, 4, 4. And I also want you to do that in the next key I'll show you, which is G major. The goal, like I said, is for you to be able to explain the repetition and variation, make a melody out of it, have it pedagogically sound so it fits on what you might be trying to teach, and write out that my goal is to teach this one thing, the repetition of X to Y. And I want you to be able to think of that as an etude that you can create for yourself or a student. So here I'm going to give a quick overview of G major. So before I get to G major, let's remember what we talked about with D major. D major is a half whole D on the uppercase. Add the C sharp key, Mickey Mouse's face, and then play one finger for B natural, and then add fingers until you get 6 fingers down. In the case of G major, we're going to simply get rid of our half whole D to C sharp, and instead, we're going to play C natural. So we're going to take our B natural of one finger, add the right hand first finger, and that's going to start to open up the vents on this side. And that lifts the B up to a C natural. So here's G major up to C natural. We've gotten to C natural. Then we go to half whole D as before. E with the first octave key, F sharp to G. As soon as you begin ascending beyond this, there's some other keys that come into place. We won't worry about them for right now. But G major, so we have those 2 scales reviewed, and now you're able to utilize those for your etude assignment. We've already discussed a variety of ways that you as a teacher and as a musician can observe, whether it be an oboe or another instrument, and think of variables and parameters that can help you assess what a student is doing. I'm going to give you an assignment. I am going to be your subject here, and I'm going to play in 5 different ways. And I want you to utilize what you've been taught and what you know already from the embouchure exercises to assess one thing, maybe 2 if you're not sure, that I could do to improve this exercise that I'll be playing or the way I'll be playing. It may be a little silly, but at least you hopefully should be able to see very expressly that I'm doing one thing. You could argue incorrectly. My goal is for you to couch this in terms that are positive, to focus on, for example, if I'm playing too far out and flat, you could say, to focus your tone and bring your pitch up to 440, you might be able to slide the reed in a little bit, maybe 5%. Then you'll bring your pitch up and you'll be a little bit more stable. You're assessing not only what can help them, but pointing out the positivity of doing that. And my advice is always very small increments. Think of it as like a millimeter or as 1%, 5%. Keep it very, very small because on the oboe, everything feels massive, when in fact we're only moving maybe 1/8 of a millimeter and it completely changes. So again, here's 5 exercises, and I want you to write out what I could do, what element would you use to improve that and what you would do to make that better. So in these 5 elements, you're going to write out the exercise, what you saw, and what you would do to improve that, and how you would say that to the student themselves. So here's the 5 different techniques, the 5 different poorly played elements. Okay, the second one. Very impressive, I know. 3. Four. Oh, I got a nice vibration going on there. And then the final one. So there's your 5 deficient ways of playing that I want you to try to very clearly articulate how to improve and what you would say to do that. So next I want to introduce some more air embouchure reed exercises. We've talked about using your air alone, forming the embouchure, pushing the embouchure out and in, and sliding the reed back and forth. One of the most important ones then is additionally the embouchure roll, where the slide allows for a gross or kind of very large parameter to change to play in tune. So if you play a low note, inherently the oboe will work better in that low register. But it may not sound very good. So you have to slide in a little bit to bring it into the correct place. A little better. When we play a low note on the oboe, the reed plays a certain pitch. When we play a high note on the oboe, even though the oboe pitch is in tune, the pitch of the reed increases. The pitch on the oboe reed has to change to play the oboe in tune in the upper and lower registers, which is a unique element of the oboe. But to assist in the correct timbre and pitch level that we're looking for, we must use what's called a slide. In essence, the embouchure, rather than staying strong and resisting the reed, the embouchure will become almost semi-supine and will be able to move. This way, even if you play a very low note far out on the reed, you can roll in so far that the pitch is actually sharp on the lowest note of the oboe. The same thing in the upper register if you're playing very far up to get the right pitch. It's this control of a slide across the embouchure and the ability to use a timbre control or a roll to be able to shift how you're muffling the embouchure and the pitch. It allows you to essentially play every note on the oboe in tune as you see fit. So if you want to play a high A and you want to play it sharp or flat or in tune, you should conceivably be able to. And very quickly change back and forth between those notes. After the roll, and let me demonstrate what I've written here, the embouchure roll is where you repeat the previous exercise while allowing the embouchure to move with the reed. I already mentioned that. If the lower lip is too tight, the reed will slide, or it slides across the lip. But if you soften the lower lip, the reed will roll on the lip. This technique can be used to adjust pitch and timbre even when the embouchure is already set to support the upper and lower registers. So it's something you can change. So if you're going from a high A, you don't have to slide out. You can roll out, something that's a lot easier to do quickly than it is to reposition yourself in the middle of a fast passage like you may encounter. The next ones are very important for a young student especially. They're very powerful, so you have to be very careful. But the next one is opening the jaw and maintaining embouchure position. You say, that sounds bad. When you lower the jaw, your jaw lowers, but your embouchure stays up. And I've written here, maintain the reed's position on the lower lip and lower the jaw to allow more cushion for the reed. Your teeth go down, but your lips hover over the reed. By doing this, it's almost like a giant couch, which your lip is working as. If you have only teeth there, it's a much stiffer sound. But when you do this, of course, the pitch goes down because you've dropped your jaw, the thing that's pushing up on the reed. So it allows us to then positively, potentially, breathe with greater pressure and bring the pitch up. So again, it's about isolating the variables for improvement. The next one, pushing down on the lower lip. While holding the reed with the thumb and middle finger, use pressure from the index finger on the top of the reed's thread to push the reed down to the lower lip and relax the pressure. This is something, especially with younger students, you'll find them either completely smashing the reed down into their lower lip and into their teeth, or they're just so far up, they may be really flat. If you have them put pressure on the oboe down into the lower lip, you'll get them playing in tune or sharp in no time. And even in a pinch or an emergency, when the weather shifts quite a bit and the reed changes, it's a really great way, in the middle of a concert even, to rapidly increase the pitch. And it's so easy to forget how simple of a parameter that can be. Changing of the angle. Set the reed in an angle perpendicular to the body and lower the angle of the reed until it is parallel to the body. So perpendicular. There's a reasons why you play at a certain angle, especially in my pedagogy and teaching method. I don't want it at 45. I actually want it a little lower than that, maybe 30 to 20. Sometimes even lower. Some people play with it directly parallel to the individual. But if you play straight out, it's you could say almost a little more brassy. It's a little bit more uncovered. It's more forward. For some people, they like that. Oftentimes in America, there's a little bit more of a muffled playing, and so we bring the instrument a little further down. Finally, the last two, we have bite, where we take the reed, and finally, we take our teeth and use the lower jaw to increase and decrease pressure on the reed through the embouchure. The reason I've put this one so low is I want the student to be able to understand how embouchure functions. That the embouchure is the lips, and it's sitting here and has all these different ways to adjust. And if none of that works, then bite. Because it's one of the most dangerous things for a young oboist is to use your teeth, become an alligator oboist, and just smash down on the reed. It's not going to work for you very long. As soon as you get into your 40s, 30s, 40s, or you play in a professional orchestra, if you're playing 5 or 6 hours a day, there's stories of oboists whose lips begin to bleed, and they quickly decide they either have to quit or they have to find a better way to play. And finally, embouchure alone, or lukma no hands. A lot of this has been assisted by the oboe, by the reed, and the hands, but now we're going to take just the reed alone, and with all the skills we have, we're going to change the pitch up and down. Showing you have the control to use your lips alone to adjust the instrument. And a lot of times that's what you're doing. You don't have the oboe moving as much. You actually have to shift with your embouchure. So these are the other elements that I want you to be thinking about and considering, especially those top 5 or 6 when you're thinking about a student, and just know these are very powerful things, but when talked about directly, they're very helpful in being able to quickly adjust or improve something. Now I'm going to introduce F major and B flat major. There's some new keys here, so I want you to make sure you have your fingering chart available. But in F major, we swap out the F sharp we had previously for F natural. And F natural is thought best by thinking of 5 fingers down for E and adding the key between E and D right here. And that lifts up this key right back here and raises the E up to the F natural on the oboe. So F natural is not 4 fingers as on other instruments. It is 5 fingers plus the little key between E and D here. In F major, we also have B flat. So now we have to bring our B natural, and we're going to think of this to get to B flat by thinking of an A natural and lifting it with the right hand first finger. And you can see this opens up one of the vents here and lifts the A up to the B flat. So F major. B flat major gets a little tougher. We have the choice of going all the way down to the lowest note on the oboe, low B flat, which a lot of students don't have because they don't have this lowest note. They would have to plug the 2 holes on here, which means your low B goes away and only low B flat is possible. So oftentimes I'll have the students go into the upper octaves. So let's talk about those because there's a few things that get a little trickier on the oboe very quickly. We already talked about B flat and C. We have half hole D. But now we go back to Mickey Mouse's face here. We had C sharp on the face. E flat key, and the E flat is formed by playing this outermost Mickey Mouse ear, the furthest outermost Mickey Mouse ear. We play the E flat, we have to finger a half hole D, and then add Mickey Mouse's outermost ear. And we're up to our E flat. Notice I haven't put my octave key down yet. That half hole key being open allows for kind of like a false octave key. So it's like the proto-octave key. Before you ever push the first octave key down, you keep this half hole open. And from E flat is when you have to go for a student model oboe to forked F. And you go, oh no, more things to learn. Here, we'll go back to this, but there are 3 different Fs. There's regular, forked, and left F. For now, we'll skip that. But we have forked F, and then we go, which is a 1, 2, 3, and then 1 and 3 on the right hand. And then we go and play our low G, but add the first octave, so we go up to the G. And now, oh boy, we go to the side octave, the second octave. We had the first octave here, and to get to the A, we're going to add this key, which you kind of rock back to grab. We finger the low A, but we add the side octave. Oh boy. The side octave lifts up that highest octave you'll see over here. And we haven't used the third octave yet, so we got a ways to go before we get there. But the second octave here opens to allow the A to speak. You don't need to push your first octave key down as well. I do, to keep consistency of my octave key vents. And then finally, we play our low B flat with the same side octave key to get B flat. I stopped because I used left F. So let's go back to the 3 Fs. We have a regular F that I showed you before, where you play 5 fingers and add the F key there. We have forked F, where instead of using the E and raising it, you play an F sharp and add the D key. On a lot of modern oboes, you have an F resonance key that opens up when you do this. And the difference between a forked F and a regular F is regular F vents out back here. Forked F resonates here and vents out in the middle here. That subtle difference in sound is derided in the oboe community, especially in the professional level, because we don't want the tone of the instrument to change that dramatically and drastically. And the forked F just does that and sticks right out. It's beautiful sounding, but the rest of the oboe isn't beautiful sounding, so we don't want to show off too much. So the forked F is very seldom used, if ever, if we can get away with it. And on a professional oboe or a high model oboe, they will have a left F. You say, oh boy, another thing to learn. So when you play your E, you have a regular F over here. and a left F over here. They both press the same key down. Regular F and left F all move the same key. So left F and regular F have the same sound. And that allows for a double trill. But a lot of students don't have that when they're starting out, and so they'll have to use the forked F. Some things to know. A forked F is often notated as having an E flat in the fingering. This is to improve the pitch, but it may not. So you want to check the student oboe and the student player that's helping. My oboe, it makes it sound more open and sharp and not good. My oboe's tuned well. It's a nice instrument. It doesn't need that extra help. For the student then, you would want to be able to help them understand if that forked F with the E flat or off is positive. Oftentimes I just tell them don't put it down at all, just play the regular forked F. In notating and marking above the music, there's 3 markings I'll use. I use regular F with a plus. I use a fork. For fork, I use a F. And then for left F, I use an L. And just like a bowing, this is very much like oboe bowing. We have to switch back and forth all the time between those left, fork, and regular Fs. So let me play that B flat major again. It's when we descend that things get a little more interesting as well. From D, we have new notes. From D, we start adding notes to decrease the pitch and lower the pitch. We add what's Mickey Mouse's final ear we haven't talked to, the closest one, and this is the low C key. And you can see my buddy key down there closing and bringing the pitch lower. And then when we go from low C, we add the left hand furthest away key, which a lot of students don't have, the low B flat key. And that closes the bottom of the instrument down. With a well-adjusted instrument and a great embouchure and setup, very easy. For your students, very hard. But it can be made much easier by talking about these key principles. And when used, you can isolate every single one of the problems that they have and immediately start to fix it. So even if they don't sound good, they'll sound. They'll be able to play the note. They'll be able to get more in tune. They'll be able to make a better tone. And in band, just any comprehension of what an oboist is doing is a great breakthrough because it's so hard to grapple with what's going on. But in this case, this is an example of 2-octave B flat scale here. So I'll go ahead and play a 2-octave B flat scale.